Hi, everybody. Welcome back to English Digest. I'm Pat.
Hi, I'm Stephanie.
So yesterday we discussed the news about the actors and writers strikes that took place last year. And we talked generally about who was striking and what it was about. But two of the main ideas were AI, which we talked a bit about yesterday, and the effect of streaming. Now, streaming has changed a lot of things about the way people watch TV series, but it also has changed the way that people are getting paid and how these forms of entertainment are made. And that's really what we're going to dive into in part 2 of our article.
We sure are. I have to say, when streaming first became available, I thought, oh, wow, I can watch the whole season?
Yeah.
I don't have to wait. I love that because I would usually... just watch it over a weekend, but it does affect the people who are actually producing the shows and who are in it, writing it, the talent, as we call them. And we're going to talk about what it means to them and not just us. But first, guys, as we always do, we're going to read through today's article and then we'll be back.
At the core of the strikes are the issues created by streaming. It now dominates the way people watch TV series and movies, and this has impacted the entertainment industry in numerous ways. For one thing, TV shows created for streaming platforms tend to have fewer episodes than traditional series created for TV. For another, fewer writers are being employed to create streaming series. The WGA argues this means there are fewer job opportunities and less job security for writers. According to WGA data, weekly pay for writers has fallen by 23% in the past decade, while showrunners, who are the senior writers and creative personnel for shows, are paid 46% less for working on streamed shows compared to broadcast shows. Another key problem, and one that also severely affects background extras and small part actors, relates to residuals. A writer or actor receives upfront pay for their work, and every time the show or movie is replayed, released on DVD, or sold to a streaming company, they receive further financial compensation. These payments are called residuals. Residuals were a steady source of income, but streaming technology complicated matters. AMPTP didn't wish to extend residuals into this new medium. While a compromise to pay streaming residuals was agreed on in the past, the WGA and SAG-AFTRA felt it wasn't enough considering how massive streaming is now. With concerns about AI usage adding to these financial woes, both unions believed striking for better working conditions was justified. Of course, none of these issues have been banished forever. Hopefully, writers and actors will be treated fairly in the future so they can continue to bring us the content that we love. Hi everybody, welcome back. So this part of the article starts by saying at the core of the strikes, so at the center of the strikes, are the issues created by streaming. Issues here means problems or complications or difficulties, just some kind of changes that happen to a thing and the effects that those changes have. That's what we mean by issues.
Yeah, and issues, we'll often use it to talk about things like news or controversial things where people don't always agree on things. Oh, we're having an issue with the client. If I were to say that to a coworker, we would automatically know it's a negative.
Yes.
Oh, it's a problem. We're having an issue with so-and-so. Or sometimes you'll go to school for a parent-teacher conference, and your teacher will say to you, oh, we're having an issue with Johnny. And your child has probably been naughty. So, yeah, we use it to talk about things that are usually problems. So at the core of the strikes are the issues created by streaming. What problems are created by streaming? Well, streaming now dominates the way people watch TV series and movies. I don't know a lot of people who still dig into their DVD storage, unit and pull out things. But I did a couple months ago because there was nothing new. And so I looked back at old DVDs I had to see what I could watch. But yeah, most people are streaming these days.
Yep, you're watching it on Netflix, you're using Disney
Amazon
Plus,
TV,
all of those different things.
Hulu.
Yep, and this has impacted or affected, it's made some kind of change to the entertainment industry in numerous ways. Numerous just means many. There's not just one thing that's changed. There are a whole bunch of things that have changed as a result of streaming and people wanting stuff streamed. People want this stuff on Netflix and they go, okay, this is how I want it now. So this is the way it's going to be made now rather than just for regular TV, one episode a week stuff.
Yeah.
That's just changing so much. And as is often the case, when these changes happen, it takes a long time for every part of the industry to catch up. And pay and contracts will be one of the last things to catch up.
Totally. That is so true. Sometimes people don't feel the weight of a new invention or a new modification of something until it's too late, and they can't change it, or it affects them financially, and that's what it's doing now. It's affecting them financially. I wanted to mention numerous does mean many. I know some people have asked me, what's the difference between numerous and multiple? I would say multiple isn't quite as many as numerous.
Yeah, so, you can probably count multiple, but numerous you might run, that's just too many.
Yeah, too many. So if you wanted to know the difference between those, sometimes I like to, even when I'm learning Chinese, I want to say, well, what's the difference between this word and that word? Because they seem sort of similar. We have a lot of similar words in English that way, too. So for one thing, we're moving on to the next paragraph. For one thing, TV shows created for streaming platforms tend to have fewer episodes than traditional series created for TV. And I should say broadcast TV. Even cable TV doesn't have as many shows created for a season.
That's right.
That broadcast TV. Broadcast TV, when we were growing up, they would have the minimum would be, I would say, 21. Maybe you didn't have as many episodes as we did.
British TV never does. It's always shorter episodes.
Yeah, I've noticed that.
3 to 6 sometimes.
Which is kind of nice, too.
But we'd know that if it was a UK show, it'd be like, okay, this is a 24-episode season. This is going to be a long kind of thing.
Yeah, the U.S., and that's why actors would get so burnt out who were in some of these weekly episodes, weekly TV shows. I've noticed that about you. You guys have shorter seasons, but that's not always bad. It's very good quality. And that sometimes helps the quality. What's an episode? An episode is a TV series, or it could be a radio program too. And it's one in a series of performances. And usually when we were growing up, there would be one episode per week.
It's almost like a chapter in a book. Think of it as a chapter in a book. And some kind of fancy TV shows will kind of use that chapter rather than episode because they want to sound literary.
Yes.
Okay, so that's one problem. Streaming platforms, a Netflix show will generally have fewer episodes, 6, 8, 10 sometimes, or even fewer. So that's one thing. So fewer episodes means less work to do. You don't have to, so maybe you don't need as many writers, you don't need as many actors. So there's one thing. For another, fewer writers are being employed to create the streaming services. So not only are there fewer episodes for them to work on, which means if they're being paid by episode, that's less money. There's also a smaller group of writers in the writer's room. So, or it's being freelanced out, like, okay, you do 2 episodes, you do 2 episodes, you do 3, that's it. So only 3 writers instead of a big writer's room where everybody's working together, collaborating to create these great shows.
Yeah, that would really have a big impact on them. Now, the WGA, that's the Writers Guild that we talked about on day 1, they're arguing that this means there are fewer job opportunities and less job security for writers. When you have job security, you feel at peace, you're reassured that in the future you'll be able to find work. There's no problem. I think most people out there in the world today, in a lot of industries, are feeling less and less job security. I know when I first came to Taiwan, I would be booked with recording gigs for 3 weeks in advance and just jam-packed. And now there are fewer and fewer jobs. There are fewer children. We did a lot of recording for, we call it 教材, but we do a lot of recording for teaching materials. And fewer kids are being born. So there are a lot of things impacting particular industries. So it's the same with this industry, the entertainment industry, I would call it. There are just fewer job opportunities, less job security. And right now we're talking, of course, about the Writers Guild. They've really felt the blow.
And it's not just that they don't have as much work to do and less security that they'll have a job in a year's time.
Yeah.
According to WGA data, weekly pay for writers has fallen by 23% in the past decade. So writers are just getting paid less for their work, which is no fun at all.
No.
And then we've got another class of people, while showrunners, and this is defined in the next clause, who are the senior writers and creative personnel for shows, are paid 46% less for working on streamed shows compared to broadcast shows. So if they get into streaming, if they're working for a streaming company, they'll be making less money and probably for a shorter time before they have to go move on to their next job. So we've explained what a showrunner is. They're the creative kind of heads of a show. They're the senior writers. They're often the people who come up with the idea that then will lead the writers group or the writers room. They are the senior creative personnel. Personnel is just a word that means people employed by an organization. You can also use it in the military personnel.
Yeah, we do too.
Yeah, engaged in the military, you are military personnel. If you're hospital personnel, you work in the hospital, that kind of thing.
Yeah. And we've talked about human resources being over a company's staff, right? But often you'll say someone could be a director of personnel. That's a job title. They're just director of a company's staff. Personnel is non-count.
Right.
So don't put an S on it, guys. Sorry about that. But yeah, the showrunners are probably the busiest people on a show. When a show first starts, the showrunners are the creators. It was usually their idea. Almost always it was their idea. And a lot of them write.
Yep.
I know married couples that are showrunners. That, for example, The Good Wife, that series, they've done several different TV series, but they are a wonderful writing team. But the showrunners usually are in charge of the show, and then they get tired after like 6 years. Usually they don't last longer than that. They'll leave the program, and other showrunners will be brought in, and they'll take over until the show reaches its conclusion or finale or the final season. But yeah, they're really feeling it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So that paragraph covers how that money has gone down, job opportunities have gone down, job security has gone down. That was a big reason why people were striking, because streaming has caused these changes to happen. There is another problem as well, but we're going to take a break for now, listen to our Chinese teacher, and when we get back, we'll be looking at the tricky problem issue of residuals.
Hello everyone, 我是派老师。今天讲解的是5月30号 Unit16 Hollywood Writers and Actors Win 5 for Future for Now。这是第2天的课程。这个单元所介绍的是2023年年中在好莱坞所发生的2大工会罢工事件，不论是编剧或是演员，都希望能够获得比较好的薪资待遇还有保障。最主要是因为现在影视消费习惯已经改变了，多数的消费者都在影音串流平台上找自己所喜爱的节目、影片来看。但是许多影视从业人员觉得以前所谈好的分润获利条件，并没有办法反映出串流平台上他们所制作的节目内容受欢迎的程度，希望能够帮自己争取到更好的工作条件。好，我们一起来看学习重点吧。请同学看到第一段第一个句子。第一个句子 At the core of the strikes are the issues created by streaming， 同样也是倒装句。好， At the core of the strikes 是属于主词补语， issues 才是主词。那这些议题是怎么产生的呢？这些问题怎么产生的呢？是串流所引起的。好，后面的 it now dominates， 当然这个 it 所指的就是串流啦。It now dominates the way people watch TV series and movies。所以所指的就是现在多数人主流的状况是怎么样？看电视、电影的时候，几乎就是在串流平台上看。 好，那再来，请同学看到第二段。第二段，老师想要请同学先一次看2个句子，第一和第二 for one thing， 第二个是 for another。这就是我们在写一些论说的文章的时候，你要清楚的让读者看到你的理路、逻辑的脉络，要说第一点怎么样，第二点怎么样。因为第一段的第二个句子有告诉我们说，整个娱乐产业受到串流的冲击相当的大，呈现在不同的层面。那所以就要一一的说明嘛，所以先说第一个层面怎么样，第二件事情怎么样，那可以 for one thing, for another。 再来，请看到第一个句子，请注意到 TV shows created for streaming platforms。 好，这边一样 created 这个 ed 请特别画起来，这是关代的省略以后，那我们一样保留这个过去分词的部分。那因为它是被动的嘛，这些电视节目是制作出来的。为谁制作呢？为了串流平台 streaming platform 所制作的。再来，我们看到第三个句子这边，那第三个句子就是工会他们的意见了。工会会觉得串流平台是大家所喜爱、所常使用的观赏这些影音娱乐的主要方式。那造成什么结果呢？ This means there are fewer job opportunities and less job security for writers。 那就等于很多的编剧他们少了工作机会，也没有什么工作保障。好，所以我们可以学习这个作者行文的方式，在指出现象之后呢，也进一步的跟读者说明这样子的现象造成了什么后果。好，我们看到第四个句子。第四个句子，作者进一步的用实在的数据告诉我们，到底编剧受到了什么样的影响，他们的所得下降了。所以后面是很真实的数据，过去10年编剧每周薪资下降了 23%。 那在这些串流媒体节目上工作的节目的制作人来说，他们的薪资呢和广播节目上相比，工作的收入呢少了 46%。
We're going to take a quick break. Stay tuned. We'll be right back. Welcome back, guys. It's our Hollywood writers and actors win fight for future for now. Reel here or unit, and it's been interesting to hear more about what happened during the strike that's now officially over in the U.S. But I remember when we were going through it thinking, wow, there's no new material at all. But then I got used to it, Pat. I honestly didn't miss them anymore.
I don't watch a lot of TV, so yeah, it's not something that affected me much. But it did affect a lot of background extra and small part actors.
Yeah.
And a lot of the reason they were affected and went on strike was to do with residuals. So let's take a look at what this means. Another key problem, and one that also severely or very badly affects background extras and small part actors, relates to residuals. So this is not something that would bother a big star, but this is something that's a lot more important for if you're in the background, if you've got if you've just got one single line in the entire TV show and that's all you've got. And it's residuals will basically explain what they are in the next few sentences of the paragraph.
Well, it says here that residuals, they happen when a writer or an actor, and I thought it was just for actors, so this is
and writers too, yeah.
These are new for me. So a writer or actor receives upfront pay for their work. Upfront pay means you're paid before a piece of work is actually completed. So upfront pay for their work. And that's usually when you're doing the writing or the acting.
Yeah, that'll be your contracted pay. Like you will appear from this and this will be your fee, or you'll write this many episodes and we'll pay you this much. That's what the upfront pay means. It's what's been agreed in advance.
Mm-hmm. And then every time the show or movie is replayed or released on DVD or sold to a streaming company, they receive further financial compensation. So here they're actually paid again after their work has been completed officially. Yep. They're paid again if a movie is replayed. We call the TV series that are shown again on TV, they're reruns. We call those reruns. If maybe their movie or show is released on DVD, or if it's sold to a streaming company like Netflix.
Yep.
And now we've got more streaming companies. So at that point, they're going to receive further financial compensation or more money.
Yeah, so it's the way I put it offline to Stephanie just when we were taking a break was it's like a writer. If a writer writes a book, they will get paid by their publishing company up front. And if their book keeps selling in the future, at a certain point, the writer will get that money too. Not all of it, but after they make a certain amount past their contract for their writing the book, they keep making money every time one of their books gets sold.
Which they should.
Yeah, or if you publish online, you might get a bunch of people buying your book straight away, and that's kind of your upfront fee. And then if people buy your book 5 years later, I'll get a little bit of money. Yeah. And that's what these residuals are. It says these payments are called residuals. They'll get a little bit of money saying, we released a new DVD, or we reran your show this many times in the last 6 months, and we sold it to this streaming company, and this is your payment on top of what you got in the first place.
Yeah, one of the shows that's probably made more in residuals for actors and writers than any other TV series is Seinfeld and Friends.
Yeah,
both
I was
of
going to
those.
say Friends.
Yeah, they've both made tons and tons of money because they keep playing these reruns. Probably Sesame Street as well. You think about, all the shows that are rebroadcast that the kids watch there too. So you can still make money after you've already done your job. They've already recorded you, or you've already written your script and you go home. But this residuals, it's a really nice, steady source of income. Some money that just keeps coming in regardless of whether you're working or not. But streaming technology, complicated matters. If something is complicated or somebody complicates something, they make something even more difficult than it was before. So this streaming technology just made paying the residuals even more of a hassle. How do you figure some of this stuff out?
Yeah, because
who's keeping track of who's streaming when and where and how many times?
Yeah, because like a one-off payment we sold this show to Netflix. Yeah. But hang on, that means that millions of people could be watching it all around the world many, many times because it's just there on Netflix. So paying the small amount suddenly doesn't seem fair anymore to the people who did the work in the first place. But there was nothing in the original contract. And when streaming first appeared, it for all anybody knew, it could have disappeared in a few years.
And we didn't know if it
didn't work.
Well, yeah, we did not know if it would catch on, did we?
Now it has.
Yeah.
So what we see is that AMPTP, that's the studio's kind of organization, didn't want to extend residuals into this new medium. If you extend something, you make it bigger or longer or move it into a new area, like build onto something that's already there. So what this sentence means is they didn't want to calculate a whole new load of residual payments to do with how many times a show gets streamed or how many different streaming companies have it or how many views it gets, like YouTube, that kind of thing. Yeah. At first they thought, we don't want to pay a load more money out due to streaming.
Now, there was a compromise that they came to, or the compromise they made, to pay streaming residuals in the past. So they did come to some sort of agreement. You don't always have to go on strike to come to an agreement. Sometimes two parties can get together and talk things over, and maybe they update a contract. I've done that with jobs I've had before. A compromise is when you give a little and the other side gives a little, and you aren't happy about everything, but it's a win-win for everybody, hopefully. But you have to give a little bit so that they can get more of what they want and vice versa.
Yeah, so this compromise wouldn't have been everything the writers and actors wanted.
No.
But it wouldn't have been everything the studios wanted. Right. Everybody had to kind of let it go at that. However, that was agreed in the past, maybe before everybody knew how big Netflix was going to be.
Yeah, it kind of blew up.
Yeah, so the WGA and SAG-AFTRA felt that this agreement, this original compromise, wasn't enough. The payments weren't enough, the residuals weren't high enough considering how massive streaming is now.
Yeah.
And streaming is massive. Massive means huge. It's enormous. It's the number one way anybody watches anything at this point in time, I would say.
Yeah. So with concerns about AI usage adding to these financial woes, both unions believed striking for better working conditions was justified. They just felt like they couldn't get any more out of the producers, so they thought, we've got to strike. They're really not taking us seriously.
Yeah, they're not willing to deal unless we do something this big.
I know. So a financial woe, a woe or woes, it just refers to really big problems or troubles you're having. We'll often see sometimes in newspapers, financial woes are, predicted for the future, financial woes. You don't want to go through that. So
money trouble, basically.
Money problems. They thought that, hey, no one likes striking. It's hard on everybody, but we have to do it in order to get what we want. So, of course, none of these issues have been banished forever. To banish something means to get rid of it completely. No, they will be coming back.
Yeah, we said at the end of yesterday that these deals that were reached to end the 2 strikes last year only were for 3 years. So, which means after the first, usually after 2 years of that, so only probably next year sometime, they'll sit down to start negotiating. They'll give themselves a year or 6 months to okay, we know this is coming up again at the end of this contract. We all have to start making negotiations now. Let's hopefully come to an agreement and not have another strike. But it might happen if the deals aren't good enough.
I was surprised they signed for 3 years. Knowing how quickly technology is changing, I think if I had been in charge of one of the unions, I would have said, we'll sign a 1-year deal. And then we'll come back and see where we are at that point.
But that might have only given them sort of 6 months just to make more TV shows before the whole thing comes up again.
I
So
know.
I guess
it's hard to say.
Again, it was probably a compromise by somebody saying, well, let's look at it in 5 years, and somebody else saying, no, let's look at it in 2 years.
Yeah.
And they picked 3 as the middle ground of, okay, that gives us enough time to see how things go and see what new stuff comes along and make sure AI is being regulated properly, and then we'll come back to the table.
We already don't have enough creative productions coming out of Hollywood. All we get are Marvel movies.
Sequels and remakes.
Or sequels, who cares?
Reboots.
Oh, I get so tired of that stuff. What happened to all the creative writing and the thinking?
For a while,
I think it's gone.
For a while it was in TV because you had shows, all these shows coming out, stuff like The Sopranos and The Wire and
what's the big bad? What was that one called?
Breaking Bad, and then the US remake of House of Cards and stuff like that. There are all these amazing shows that were either being streamed or you could find online.
Yellowstone was good too.
Yeah, so TV seemed to have the best talent.
Yeah, the creative side went
really
to TV, right?
But now they're finding that, it's streaming TV is now even bigger, so now we're having to struggle again.
Because at a point there, we had that middle point where things went to cable TV, right? Broadcast TV were all the big stations, and they're limited as to what they can say and do and how long things are. Then we went to cable. Cable's gone. I think cable's in the past.
Could be.
So streaming is where it's at. So now we've got to keep, negotiating new technology. I think it's going to be an interesting future, Pat.
It certainly will be. So, but that is all the time we've got just about. We're going to hand over to our Chinese teacher one more time before we're back to finish things for today.
好，我们接着看第3段。第3段的部分，第一个句子就指出另外一个问题了，其实就跟所得有关。可这个所得呢，我们可以约略的把它想成，就是好像很多作者他们出书的时候呢，如果书卖得越好，他们就可以在之后拿到更多钱。那这些编剧呢，还有像一些群众演员啊、小角色的演员之类，也有类似的这种收益所得的方式，就是这部影视节目卖得越好，照道理来说应该可以得到更多钱的，但在串流平台上好像这个模式不太行得通。好，这种获得薪资的方式呢叫 residuals， 在整段文意当中呢的第3个句子有解释，也就是第一句和第2句其实就是在说明这种所谓的 residuals 是怎么给他们的。好，那请看到第2个句子，这里有一个 upfront pay， 请同学把它画起来，意思是指这些 编剧也好，或者演员也好，他们拿到钱的时候呢，并不是一次全部拿完，可能是在一开始先拿一笔固定的钱，这个 upfront pay。好，那之后呢，等于这个节目越畅销，越多人看，他们可以拿到更多的钱。这个钱在这里呢，我们把它翻译成重播费 residuals。再来，请看到第5个句子。好，那当然了，资方这方面怎么样呢？他们看第5个句子 ，They did not wish to extend residuals into this new medium。当然不希望说这种方式呢，延伸到推及到新的串流平台，就是这种新的影视收视媒介。好，那再来我们看到第6个句子最后虽然说我们知道以前曾经针对这个 residuals 有达成过协议 ，It was agreed on in the past。好，那这就表示这过去是大家同意的 ，It was agreed on。这个 on 请圈起来，不要省略，这是过去大家所同意的。但后来呢，很多的就这2大工会觉得这样子是不够的，因为考量到现在平台呢是相当受欢迎，等于是主流的收视模式。好，再来我们看到第7个句子。第7个句子这里讲到这2大工会呢都认为 striking was justified， 他们想要去争取好的工作条件是合理的，说得通的，在道德上道理上是站得住脚的。 Striking was justified。 好，以上就是我们针对第2天课程内容所做的中文讲解，谢谢大家。
So that is all the time we have for today, everybody. Hope you've enjoyed learning about what was going on with this strike, why were they on strike, what was it all about, and keep an eye on the news as it's going to come back in a year or so. It's not over.
No, it's not.
But thanks very much for listening, everyone. For English Digest, I'm Pat.
I'm Stephanie.
We'll talk to you again soon.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.